Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are doing something special tonight. We have, right now going on, we're filming live on Facebook. Woo! So there will be some viewers tonight on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, please utilize the tool to connect and chat with us. Feel free to input questions. We will see those and we will answer those as we get them. So please take advantage of that. We're glad that you're on Facebook Live tonight as well as in-house. Any questions, just raise your hand. This is your time to glean information. We're glad that you're here. Again, refreshments are in the back. If you need those, restrooms are behind me down the hallway. Now, without anything further ado, I think anything else, Randy, to hit all the fine points initially? Randy Darby is here. He's our BioGuard rep tonight, as well as every night for that matter. But he's gonna steal the show. Randy Darby.
All right, thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Thank you for coming out. How many of you have attended one of our workshops before? Anybody? A couple of you. Thanks for coming back. We pretty much do this twice a year. Typically in the spring, how to open your pool and how to run your pool during the summer, and then we do it again in the fall to talk about how to shut your pool down properly. How many of you are relatively new at this, say less than a couple of years experience? Wow, a few of you. So this is the advanced course. So, no, I'm teasing. We're going to keep it pretty simple, pretty short and sweet, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how many questions you have. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand. I'm not a chemist, so we're not going to be breaking down molecular structures and things like that. The packet that we handed out when you came in tonight, there's a number of different pieces of information in here. Probably the piece that I'm going to cover mostly, it talks about winter closing and how to shut your pool down properly. We're really going to kind of cover two areas tonight. How to shut your pool down properly to make sure it doesn't turn into the green monster over the winter, right? We don't want it to turn into a green algae-filled swamp. And then we also want to make sure that we don't have any freeze damage, especially coming off last year where we had a pretty hard freeze. I live north of Seattle. We kind of missed a lot of the stuff you guys got down here in Portland. We had a little bit of snow, but you guys had all the ice down here. So we'll talk a little bit about how to prevent freeze damage, that type of thing. So without any further ado, let's get started. I've got a little PowerPoint presentation that we're going to run through. And really the three main objectives that we have as far as winterizing a pool are right here. We want to make sure that when you open up that pool next spring, it's crystal clear. There's no bacteria in the water. There's no algae in the water. And then a little bit later, we'll talk about what to do to protect your pool surfaces, plumbing, and equipment from freeze damage. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. As far as the water chemistry portion, we don't want this to happen. And obviously, it's kind of funny. Some people don't realize that this doesn't have to happen. They just figure every April or May they have the swamp cleaning party. And this doesn't have to happen. And it really doesn't take a lot of time, energy, or money to prevent this from happening. And so we're going to cover that tonight. The first thing, this talks about don't close your pool too soon. Pretty much this is the right time of year right now to close your pool. The key is when the water temperature in the pool gets down below 65 degrees. Has anybody checked their temperature of the water recently? What was it?
It was at 63.
63? So typically when we get into late September to middle October, that's really kind of the best time. In fact, the way we really recommend is you close your pool when the water temperature gets below 65 degrees and you open your pool in the spring when it gets above 65 degrees. Because when the water is above 65 degrees, stuff grows faster, algae, bacteria, those kind of things. So that's kind of our rule of thumb. So now's the perfect time to close up your pool. The water temperature is cool. We also don't want to cover up any problems. So if your pool looks like that picture that I just showed, the green monster, we want to fix that first. It's not going to get better over the winter. So any of those kind of problems, even if the water is cloudy, we want to fix that now. If you've got any leaks in the pool, we want to fix that now. So take care of any of those kind of problems. If the water's clear, we don't have leaks, none of those kind of problems, now we're ready to winterize the pool. And the first step is getting the water properly balanced. And pretty much the same things that you've been doing all summer to keep the pool balanced, keeping the pH in balance, keeping total alkalinity in balance, calcium hardness. If you use Optimizer Plus in your pool, we recommend getting that level topped off. This is really critical, getting the water properly balanced, because if you think about it, that water is going to be sitting in the pool for months, and if it's not in the proper balance, it can cause damage to the pool surfaces, the plumbing, the equipment, so it's really, really, really critical. I definitely recommend, if you haven't brought a water sample into the pool and spa house, bring a sample in. They need about a pint of water. They'll run your water through their computerized water testing and give you an exact prescription of what to do to get the water properly balanced. The most important one of all of these is this one right here, the pH of the water. Hopefully you've been keeping an eye on that all summer. Anybody remember what's the pH range that we want to keep our pool at? 7.4. Yeah, 7.4, 7.6, that's kind of the sweet spot. What happens is that the pH gets too low, the water gets too aggressive, too corrosive, it starts to cause damage to the pool surfaces, the plumbing, the equipment. If the pH gets too high, that if it gets above 7, 8 especially, we can get scale deposit. So we definitely want to make sure that pH stays in the proper range, and it is in the proper range when we put the pool to bed. These other couple of things like total alkalinity, that helps keep the pH more stable. How many of you have concrete pools? And so one of the things that's real important in a concrete pool is that we get the calcium hardness in the proper range, because what happens is calcium is one of those funny minerals that it's actually more soluble in cold water. So if we don't have enough calcium in the water will want to try and find the calcium, and it'll pull it out of the plaster. So it's real important that we get that calcium hardness in balance before we winterize the pool. And this Optimizer Plus product that you see here, this is another additive that we can put in that's one more layer of protection so you don't get algae over the winter. And then again, correct any existing problems. The other thing we want to check when you bring a sample in is we want to check for any dissolved metals in the water, like copper or iron. Those can cause stains to the pool. So if we test and there's any copper or iron in the water, we'll have you put in some products that'll get those metals out. Because what metals do is they'll stain the pool. So you'll open up the pool and you have kind of a bluish green stain on the pool. That's from copper. Iron causes kind of a rusty brown color. So we want to get those metals removed before we winterize the pool. So this is the first step, get the water properly balanced. The next step, this is probably the least fun part of owning or operating a pool, but really the elbow grease part, getting the pool clean. The idea here is we want to skim the pool, so if you've got any debris on the surface of the pool, skim it out with your skimmer net. We also want to brush the walls of the pool. What this does, this gets any algae or biofilms off the walls, out into the water where either the filter can remove it or the chemicals can take it out. So that would be important. Vacuum the pool, remove any leaves and debris. If you get a lot of leaves in the pool, I don't know how many of you have one of these. This is called the leaf eater. You have one of these? This is a pretty slick device. This just hooks to your telescopic pole, and right here you hook up your garden hose to this. Turn on your garden hose and it creates kind of a spray of water in here, and this net will collect the leaves. So if you get a lot of leaves in the pool, this is a pretty slick device to get those leaves and not clog up your filter and that type of thing. This is called the leaf eater. But the idea here is we want to get that water as clean as possible before we go to the next step, which is really putting in the chemicals here in a couple of slides from here. We want to get that water crystal clear, cleaned up, thank you, as best we can. Because what happens is if there's any debris in the pool laying on the bottom of the pool, that can leave a stain. It can also deplete our chlorine and cause the pH to get out of balance as well. We also recommend chemically cleaning the filter. What kind of filters do you all have? How many of you have sand filters? And how many have cartridge filters? And how many have DE filters? Okay, so we've got sand and cartridge filters. With cartridge filters, we just need to soak them in a solution of water and a filter cleaner. Typically in this area, the product that we use is called Strip Quick. This is a liquid cleaner. You use typically a half a bottle of Strip Quick with enough water to cover the cartridge filter, let it soak overnight, rinse it off real well. We want to get, because it's a pretty strong detergent, we want to get it rinsed off properly. Those of you with sand filters, it's a little bit easier. We just need to get this Strip Quick product into the filter. And the best way to do this, you turn your pump off, you put your sand filter in the backwash position, you pour this liquid Strip Quick into the front of the pump in the hair and lint pot. Open that lid on the front of the pump, you pour the Strip Quick into the pump pot, put the lid back on, and then you just turn the pump on for a few seconds. What that does is that moves that cleaner from the pump into the filter. You shut the pump off, let it sit for a couple of hours.
So it's still in the backwash position?
Yes, exactly. His question was, it is still in the backwash position. It's still in the backwash position really for two reasons. When it's in the backwash position, it flushes it in from the bottom of the filter and kind of stirs up the sand. The second reason is we don't want any of this Strip Quick into the pool because it would cause a major bubble bath. It wouldn't hurt the water any, but it is a detergent, so it would cause a pretty bad foaming problem. So we backwash it into the filter, shut the pump off, leave it off for a couple of hours, and that basically shampoos the sand. Then we backwash that cleaner out. So we're basically using the pump to put it into the filter, let it sit for a couple of hours, and then backwash it out. We recommend this twice a year, the middle of the season, like in mid-July, and then this is the best time of year to do it. We want to get any of those greases and oils that got clogged up in the filter from the summer, because what will happen is if we don't clean that out now, you're going to have poor filter performance next spring. Now, if you're thinking about changing your sand next spring, you probably don't need to do this. You probably don't need to chemically clean the filter now, but typically, Tony, how often are you recommended changing the sand?
Commercially every 3 years, residential 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so that gives you kind of an idea of how often to change the sand. The other thing that can be helpful, this product up here called Off the Wall, if you've got any kind of a water line buildup on your pool, whether it's a tile, you got a tile around the edge of the pool, or if it's fiberglass or vinyl, this is a gel that you put on a sponge or a scrub brush to get any kind of a scum line or a mineral deposit off the edge of the pool. Kind of the same thing with the filter. If that debris hardens on the filter over the winter, it's going to be pretty difficult to remove next spring. You want to get the pool as clean as possible, clean the filter, clean the water line, and now we're really ready to put in the two main winterization products. And we put these in a little kit. We have two sizes of kits, one that treats up to 12,000 gallons, one that treats up to 24,000 gallon pool. And so it's up to, so if you had a 20,000 gallon pool, we put the whole 24,000 gallon kit. If you have an 8,000 gallon, we put the whole
40,000.
So if you have a 40,000, I'd probably put in two 24,000 gallon kits. Good question, because we'd rather overdose it than underdose it, so that we have enough, because there's mainly two products in here that I'm going to go over in a second. There's a winterizing shock treatment and a long-lasting algicide that we put in. And there are some coupons inside the kits as well. But again, depending on the size of your pool, and the product that's inside in the 24,000 gallon kit, there's 2 bottles of this Arctic Blue Shock. This is a long-lasting winter shock treatment. This has chlorine, it has some pH buffers, some non-chlorine shock, a variety of products, a multi-purpose shock treatment to get the water clear, remove any contaminants from the water, and establish a fairly high level of chlorine in the pool, up around 8 or 10 parts per million of chlorine. Is anybody using anything other than chlorine in their pool? Anybody use soft swim in their pool? Okay, so all chlorine users. So everybody in here, whether you're using traditional chlorine tablets or sticks, anybody have a chlorine generator on their pool? No? So everybody's using traditional chlorine tablets or sticks? So you're going to put in 1 bottle of this per 12,000 gallons of water. So like this 24,000 gallon kit has 2 bottles. You add this directly to the pool with the pump and filter circulating, get it distributed, wait an hour, and then we're going to go to the next step, which is adding a long-lasting algicide. This is called Arctic Blue Algae Protector. And in the 12,000 gallon kit, there's a pint. In the 24,000 gallon kit, there's a quart. We just add this around the edge of the pool, and that's basically the 2 steps. So we've got a high level of chlorine, we've oxidized contaminants in the water, and we put a long-lasting algicide in the water. Those are the 2 main products.
Now, people always ask me, how long is this going to last? And that's kind of the million-dollar question, is there's a lot of variables. Part of it is, how many of you cover your pool, put some kind of cover during the winter? So that helps lengthen the life of these products that we're putting in. If you don't cover the pool, then you're obviously getting rain, you're getting debris into the pool. These aren't going to last quite as long. And so there's a little bit of a variable, and it also depends on how harsh the winter is. So like last winter, where it was pretty harsh, the winterizing chemicals last longer. If we have a mild winter like we did a couple of winters ago, they don't last quite as long. So that's why I recommend, as soon as we start getting some nice weather in late February or March, bring Tony and his staff in a sample of water. They can check the chlorine level, check the water balance. We may need to put another winter shock treatment in, but the thing that causes the pools to turn into the green monster with algae is typically when the chlorine level gets below 1 part per million. That's when all the bad stuff happens. Algae, bacteria start to grow, so you start seeing some nice weather in February or March, bring a sample into the store or get your test kit out yourself or your test strips, test the water. If that chlorine level is starting to get low or is gone, come back into the store right away, because typically we can just put $15-20 worth of winter shock into the pool and establish a chlorine residual again and not let that pool turn into the green monster. So those are the two main products that we're going to put in. We also came out with a new product this year called Pool Closing Complete. This is a product that really does three things. This prevents any scale buildup that we can sometimes get over the winter, any metal staining, there may be trace metals in the water, and it also prevents any kind of water line buildup throughout the winter. So this is a 72-ounce bottle. We put this in, put the entire bottle in up to 25,000 gallons. So like in your pool, you'd put two bottles in. And then really the last thing is, if you've got a white plaster pool, there is one more thing that we can put in to give it a little bit, keep a little more chlorine going in all winter. This is called a winter floater, and this is what it looks like. And this is a disposable chlorine floater. Take off the packaging. There's some holes that you poke in here, and this has 3.5 pounds of chlorine tablets that keep a little bit of chlorine going into the pool all winter, but this can only be used in white plaster pools. This is really strong chlorine. It could bleach a vinyl liner or a fiberglass pool, so this keeps a little chlorine going in all winter. Yes, sir?
My pool's painted.
So in a painted pool, you would not use this.
Okay.
Yep, white plaster pools only. So
That's where we are.
those of you that have vinyl, painted pools, fiberglass pools, it's probably a little bit more important for you when you start seeing some nice weather in the early spring. Bring a water sample into the store and have Tony and his team check the chlorine level for you, because you're not going to be able to keep this. This keeps that chlorine going in all winter and helps keep that chlorine level up. So as far as the water chemistry goes, that's it. It's not very complicated. So getting the pool water properly balanced, getting the pool cleaned up with all the debris, clean the filter, clean the water line. We're going to put the winterizing kits in. We're going to put the winter shock in, winter algicide, pool closing complete, winter floater if you've got a white plaster pool. And from a chemical standpoint, that is it. It's really that simple that the pool won't turn green. Any questions on the chemical side? Anybody do anything different than that?
What about phosphates?
What about phosphates? So his question was about phosphates. If you've got high levels of phosphates in the water and they're causing a problem, like you've got algae in the pool, we'd want to take care of that first before we winterize the pool, because phosphates can help contribute to algae growth. So we would definitely, but I mean, if you've got phosphates in the water and the water's not green, it's not cloudy, you probably don't need to do anything, frankly.
Sure. But it does make algae grow.
Yeah, it can sure. It's one of the components that can help make algae grow if you
put in a lot of this other stuff, it doesn't touch it, so because you have a high level.
Yep, it can. So, all right. So that's yes.
What's in the pool closing complete bottle that's not in the winter kit?
So in the winter kit, there's really just two products. There's a chlorine shock treatment and there's a long-lasting algicide. This is for preventing staining, preventing scale buildup, and also preventing that water line buildup that will sometimes get over the winter.
Gotcha.
Question.
Yes.
So if I just replace the sand with glass in my filter, just this summer, the strip quick wouldn't apply for me.
So her question was, if you just replaced the sand, you'd put glass media in.
Yeah.
And when did you put that in? At the beginning of the summer?
Yes.
So I would still want to chemically clean the glass
Okay.
with the Strip Quick.
Okay.
Yeah, so good question. So it doesn't matter if you've got sand in the filter. A lot of people have switched to the glass filter media and sand filters. Same principle applies. You still would want to chemically clean the glass.
Okay.
Yep.
Even late July?
If you chemically cleaned it in late July,
Well, no, I changed to the glass media.
I would still want to, because we had a pretty good. Did you use the pool in
Yeah,
August? I mean, it was
yeah.
pretty warm in August and
Yeah.
in September. I probably would want to chemically clean it. I'll be honest with you. The filter is one of the weak links to keeping good water quality. In fact, we get a lot of water samples sent back to our lab, from stores like Tony's here, where somebody sends a water sample back because the water just won't clear up. They've tried all of our products, the water won't get clear, and we'll run it. The test that we do is basically what's called a turbidity test. We'll test how cloudy the water is, then we'll put it through some filtration that would be like a sand filter to see how much would be removed. And 99% of the time it's a filtration issue. So keeping that sand or the cartridge filter clean is really important. And during the summer, running the pump enough. Sometimes people don't realize we recommend during the summer a minimum of 10 to 12 hours a day the pump should be running. And anytime you have a problem, run it 24 hours a day until we fix the problem. Tony?
Yeah, question. We had an unusual event this year with the forest fires, and no doubt, you may touch on this later, but could you please touch on the ash issue?
So, I mean,
And
obviously,
how that affects the filtration? And
yeah, so obviously when you get any type of foreign debris in the pool, the filter is going to pick that stuff up. So that would be another good reason to chemically clean the filter to get that ash out of there. Yes, sir.
So I got a filter I run 24 hours a day, and I don't have to do that?
So his question was, do you have to run your pump 24 hours a day? We tend to recommend that. Running it 24 hours a day, especially here in the Northwest, electricity isn't that expensive. But in some parts of the country and some people that are really looking at their pocketbook, we recommend a minimum of 10 to 12 hours a day, but it actually puts less wear and tear on the pump running it 24 hours a day versus turning it on and off. So it's kind of up to you. I tend to recommend, especially in July and August when the pool's being used heavily, run it 24 hours a day. Your water's going to stay nicer when you're getting that kind of circulation and filtration. Yes?
No, I just bought a pool or the house about 6 months ago, and I'm learning about this myself. But the Hayward that we have in there, it has two actually. Looks like a low dose filtration system and like a higher speed one. Is that true? They have two different kinds of speeds that you can get for the filtration system on there. Because mine's a higher. So that's why I was told only run it 12 hours a day because it's a higher energy output.
So his question was about the different types of pumps. There's high speed and low speed pumps.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variables. I'll tell you what, the bottom line is, if you're maintaining crystal clear water, that pretty much tells you how well you're doing. If the water's staying clear, your chlorine level is good, and your pH level is good, that's pretty much it. Because I know who's from a commercial pool in here, from like an apartment house, hotel, motel. So what are the two things the health department is really concerned with water chemistry wise when they come to your pool? Actually, there's three things: chlorine, pH, and can you see the bottom of the pool?
Yeah.
Those are the three things. So those of you with residential pools, you are your own health department. So if you've got a good chlorine level, the pH is in balance, and you can see the bottom of the pool, because being able to see the bottom of the pool, that's a safety thing, right? Yeah. If you can't see the bottom of the pool, that's a drowning risk. So we want the pool to be able to see the bottom of the pool, to be able to see the main drain. but really it's just the chlorine and the pH from a water chemistry standpoint that keeps that water clear. And your question about running the pump enough, if the chlorine level and the pH level are good and the water's still cloudy, it's probably you're either maybe not running the pump quite enough, or something's wrong with the filter. Good questions. It sounds like we don't have any soft swim users in here. Soft swim is another system for residential pools that's non-chlorine. So if you want more information on this, next spring, that would be a good time to start on this. This is for residential pools only. It's a non-chlorine system. Okay, so the next area that we need to be concerned with in shutting our pool down for the winter is preventing freeze damage. And there's basically two ways to winterize a pool, especially here in the Portland, Gresham, Vancouver area, where we're kind of on the borderline. Sometimes we get hard freezes like we did last year, sometimes we don't. There's two methods. One is the off-season pool care for mild climates, which a lot of people in the Portland, Gresham area will do. And then there's basically the full bore freeze damage protection like they do in Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, where they drop the water level, they blow all the water out of the lines, they drain all the water out of the equipment. How many of you do that in here? Okay, a couple, 2 or 3 of you. So we'll talk about both methods. The first thing I'm going to talk about is how people will prevent freeze damage in milder climates, which is the way people do, typically a lot of people do here in the Portland area, where they basically either, like you talked about, keep the pump running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. A lot of people do that. The other option is to only run the pump a couple hours a day, and then anytime the air temperature is going to get close to freezing. Because what we're concerned with, we want to make sure that if we're getting freezing temperatures, that the water's moving through the skimmer, the pump, the filter, the heater, because obviously when water's not moving and it's freezing temperatures, it can freeze, freezing water expands, and then it breaks stuff. That's our main concern. So that's one method, and it sounds like a lot of you are probably doing that. And if you, how many above ground pool owners do we have in here? Sometimes with above ground pools, that could be a little bit easier. With above ground pools, they'll drain the water down below the skimmer, disconnect all the equipment, put the equipment in the garage. So basically all you've got that body of water with a cover over it, no equipment attached. We don't care if the water in the pool freezes, because it's kind of like water in an ice tray. You know, when water in an ice tray freezes, it doesn't break the ice tray. It's not going to break the pool if the water freezes. Mainly what we're concerned with here in the Portland area is we don't want water to freeze in the equipment, and we don't want it to freeze in any of the plumbing lines, especially that are above, that are exposed, because then it's going to, break the plumbing line. So with this method, the water's always running if you run 24 hours a day, or make sure that anytime the air temperature gets close to freezing, the pump is on. Does that make sense? That's one option. The other option is like they do in Eastern Oregon or Eastern Washington, where they evacuate all the water out of the plumbing lines, out of the skimmer, out of the pump, the filter, the heater. And so this is the way they winterize pools in Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon. So I'm going to kind of go through this process, and this depends a little bit on the type, whoever built your pool. I would definitely, every pool builder's got a little bit different recommendations. Some will recommend draining the water down below the skimmer or the returns. Some want you to drain it down below the returns, blow the lines out, fill the pool back up. So definitely, especially if you've got an in-ground pool, I would check with whoever built your pool to get their recommendations. Like I said, every pool builder is a little bit different. But quite often they'll have you lower the water level below the skimmer, below the return lines, and then they'll have you blow the lines with either a shop vac or a compressor, so that we blow all the water out of the plumbing lines, and then we'll plug that with the winterizing plug. Sounds like that's what a couple of you do in here, right?
Yeah.
Is that the way you winterize your pool?
Mm-hmm.
And so yes,
my
sir.
problem is when everything freezes, I lose electricity, so I can't run my pump. I
So,
have a generator, but I don't run my generator with my pool pump.
so that's a good point. His point was if you're in an area you tend to get power outages, frankly, you're probably better doing this method.
That's why I do it,
It is because then it's pretty foolproof because you've got all the water out of the equipment, you've got the water blown out of the lines. There's really the only thing that can freeze is the water in the pool, and like I said, we really don't care about that water in the pool freezing. So, like what this guy's doing here is he's pulling off the eyeball fitting. He's going to blow that line. He's going to plug it. We also want to make sure that that we get the majority of water out of the skimmer. What you see this guy putting in the skimmer right here, this is a device that screws down into the skimmer so that when we get rain or snow, some water gets into the skimmer, that when it does expand, when it does freeze and expand, that basically takes the hit. It'll break up the ice so you don't get that, because what happens is that if water freezes in the skimmer, it'll expand, it'll break the skimmer. This will basically absorb the expansion. And some above ground pools will put in, even in-ground pools, there's some plugs that you can put on the skimmer faceplate. Yes, sir.
I take one of those return lines and just screw in there and take something up to the water level I want to maintain, which is just below the tile, and then it can rain all at once, and then I have that one where I have a gate valve on it, and it constantly drains when it gets up to that level. Can't go any higher.
Yeah, so
So you can utilize those lines.
You can utilize those lines. There's a lot of, it's kind of why we don't have one method that we recommend for all pools, because a lot of pool builders have different recommendations on how to do this process. But really the main thing is getting all the water out of the equipment, all of the water out of the lines, getting all the water drained out of the filter, the heater, the pump. Everything needs to be drained so that water can't freeze and expand. Turn the power off to the pump, turn the gas off to the heater, and again, from a foolproof standpoint, this is if you're worried about power outages, this would be the best way to winterize your pool to know that you can't have freeze damage. Any other questions on the freeze damage protection? Okay, so then really the last thing is deciding whether to cover your pool or not to cover the pool, what type of cover to use. So the first covers that I've got here, this is an above ground pool with a solid cover, in-ground pool with a solid cover. How many of you use solid covers on your pools? Okay, so from a chemical standpoint, solid covers are probably the best, because you're not getting rain, you're not getting debris into the pool. The downside to solid covers is that you get a pool on top of a pool, right? And so that's the hard part about solid covers, because you got to keep that water pumped off, and then you get some algae growing on top of the cover. So a couple things about the solid covers. We want to make sure, like on this in-ground pool here, that the solid covers are not tight on the pool. The cover needs to come across the deck, straight down the walls of the pool, across the water, up the other side and onto the deck, because obviously when it rains and snows, if there's any tightness to that cover, it's going to pull the cover into the pool, and you just defeated your purpose of keeping all the leaves and debris out of the pool. Same thing with the above ground cover. You want to keep any excess water. It's especially out here in Gresham where you get a lot of wind. It's not a bad idea to put a little bit of water on top of the cover to keep it from flapping around, but you don't want too much water on the cover either that could pull the cover into the pool. There are some cover cleaners that we can use. The cover cleaner that we offer is called Stowaway. By the way, how many of you keep solar blankets on your pool during the summer? So those definitely should be pulled off during the winter. I mean, it's not going to hurt the pool having it on there, but those solar blankets are meant for cold water. What'll happen is if you leave it on the pool over the winter, you may notice a bunch of little blue polka dots down on the bottom of the pool next spring where the bubbles broke. And so now you've got the solar blanket pieces on the bottom of the pool. This allows you to put the Stowaway as a cover cleaner to protect where you clean the solar blanket. You can do this on the pool. You mix up a half a quart of Stowaway and a couple gallons of water. Brush it on the cover while the cover's on the pool. Flip it over, brush it again to clean it, and then as you're rolling the cover up, squirt the other half a quart of stowaway on the cover so you can store it away wet so it won't mold and mildew over the winter. How many of you have mesh covers? So just one person, these are pretty popular. There's a couple different types of mesh covers. There's these safety covers like you see here. There's some more tarp mesh covers. A lot of people in the Portland, Gresham, Vancouver area use mesh covers because of all the rain that we get. So what these do is they allow the rain through, but only a little bit of fine debris through. So these are pretty handy. Really the only downside with these is you are getting rainwater into the pool, so that is going to dilute some of the winterization chemicals that we're using. So you probably want to check your water a little bit earlier next spring to see what our chlorine level is, because we might require another winterizing chalk treatment to top that level up a little bit. So these work pretty well. That's a mesh cover. Does anybody have an automatic cover? No automatic covers? These are pretty popular as well, where you just basically press a button and the cover rolls over the pool. Definitely with those, you have to monitor the water level, because what happens with these is these lay on top of the water, and if you had a leak in the pool, that water level got down, it would pull the cover and rip the cover. So pretty important that you pay real close attention, because these covers are pretty expensive. How many of you don't cover the pool at all? So if you don't cover the pool at all, you just need to keep a little bit closer eye on it. If you get any debris into the pool, ideally get that vacuumed out periodically. Check the chlorine level, the pH level. I would say recommend doing that once a month, just to make sure that we've got enough chlorine and the pH is in balance. Vacuum as needed. Watch the water level. You may need to drain a little bit of water out periodically. So really, you can cover them. Leave them uncovered, different types of covers. We typically would recommend covering them just from a standpoint of not getting debris into the pool, and the chemicals that we're putting in will definitely last longer. This talks about don't close the pool too soon. This is the perfect time if you haven't closed your pool up. I mean, this is really the best time right now. The water temperature is cold. The winterization products that we're going to put in will last longer, and you won't have to worry about the pool turning into the green monster. Yes?
So we close our gates when school starts. So could I cover my pool then, or should I wait till the water's cold enough?
That's really a good question, because we always have that time. His question was for you folks on Facebook is, if especially right after Labor Day, right?
Yeah.
People tend to stop using the pool less. Kids go back to school. We typically recommend from Labor Day till the water temperature gets below 65 degrees, you just do your normal maintenance.
Okay.
Keep the chlorine between 1 and 4 parts per million, keep the pH in balance, keep the pump circulating, and then once that water temperature gets below 65 degrees, do what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, so don't cover it.
Don't cover it, don't close it up, because what'll happen then is the winterization products that we put in, they would have gotten consumed, and then we're much more likely to get green algae in the pool, turn bad. So you're better off, and it's not gonna, because the pool's not being used, it's just open, you're circulating it, it's not gonna cost you very much money in keeping the chlorine level up, keeping the pH level up, because people don't realize the things that cause chlorine to be consumed and cost you more money, when people are in the pool, when there's debris getting into the pool, so keep it vacuumed. We want you to not put a cover on it so we can see the pool and make sure that we're keeping good water chemistry, but it shouldn't cost you a lot of money from that September to the middle of October just to keep the pool open and running. Any other questions? Tony, do we have any from Facebook tonight? No questions from Facebook? Anything that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think that was pretty well covered. Tonight, if you have not yet picked up your winterization chemicals, we're here to do that. The store is still open from that standpoint. If you brought in a water sample, we've ran the test. We're at this point, once we wrap up, we'll walk you through those water samples. If you haven't If you didn't bring any water tonight and you haven't closed your pool yet, we do, without a doubt recommend that you bring in a water sample so that way we can help you really dial that in and give you the assurance that you're closing it up healthily speaking. But from that standpoint, I think we're good to go.
All right, we'll be around for any questions if you have any one-on-one questions afterwards. So we have lots of snacks in the back. Help yourself. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.